Yeah, video time. Yay! Really unbelievable weather. Yeah, I got my spring leather on. Yeah, I didn't buy it. It's not mine. Given to me. I'm not guilty. Anyway, just gonna go, who knows where. Garbage or something. Who knows? Anyway. See, everything's always just, I get a guilt trip before I even start the video. But anyway, it really is. Just, you almost feel like, it's like but it's not. It's February, so I ain't gonna get caught up in it. It's not gonna fool me. No, it's not. Alright, on to the video. Enough of that mush. So my feet are kind of cloddy. Alright, we'll have to wait until I untie my boots. So I probably shouldn't have bothered with this. I should have just started the video in the house, but whatever. Boots are, they're very useful, but they're sort of a bitch to get off your feet. You probably know that. Yeah, it's a theory of mine. Boots are hard to get off your feet. Yeah. You think I should publish the theory? Yeah, you think everybody's going to be able to wipe it out? Yeah. Counter it with some sort of logical argument? I don't think so. So anyway, it's a nice jacket though. My first year with it. And, sorry, I just have some paperwork. I've got to mail that tomorrow. Where do I put things that have to be mailed tomorrow? Why don't you just throw it on the floor, Gary? That's what you usually do. Anyway, alright, here we are. Alright, Modern Mystic. Oh, Mystic's gonna hate this. Oh, I start the video with this bullshit. Wasted his time. He cherishes it. And well, he should. Yeah, I could talk about this new website thing. But no, we won't do that. Save that for later. Alright, so Modern Mystic. Vlogger Dome video. Yay! Alright, so, for context, his video is exactly on the subject I was going to talk about anyway. My notes even right there. They're just about this very same subject. Because there was this weird circumstance. Alright, so this guy leaves these snarky comments. And so I, in my last video, I said, screw it, block him. I just copied his comment, and so I'll answer it in a video. Because I've already answered it in videos over and over again. And I answered it in my comment. And, he has one, no, I blocked him, is because he has one of those stupid accounts where it says, the user is not available, or whatever the fuck it says. And that's just bullshit. You're gonna fucking waste my time with your bullshit, then I have the right to waste your time. Give me a place where I can waste your time, fucker. Or shut up. But anyway, that's the side issue. Anyway, so he's making this idiotic, well, sorry, Nick. He's making this idiotic Nick-style argument that, there's no such thing as value. Because it's just all this subjective tangle. Alright, and then on the other extreme you got Piro, who's just full of all this. There's stuff everywhere. There's all kinds of forces doing all kinds of mystical and magical things. He's getting so far from a digital universe. And he doesn't even believe it, but he's just talking it. It's really irritating. So anyway, what was my point? Well, my point is these three subjects are related, and I'll try to get to them. I'll try to answer the issue. But I'll just play the mystic so you get it straight.
Qualitatively separate the two. Surely that quantitative and qualitative...
Alright, so what Nick is saying, there's these two concepts that have been talked about. Piro's will thing, power, is power will, that we're dismissing. And this idea of suffering having meaning. And that the mystic is basically saying, there's obviously we can distinguish between the two. One is there and one is over there. They have different names in them and words, and so they're different things. But they're basically the same thing. Why is this one in the special really is category and this one in the Pyro's an idiot category? That's what he's asking.
Difference doesn't make for the result that one, Pyro's and everybody else's willpower is reduced to absolutely nothing, whereas, on the other hand, Gary's and everybody else's personal experience of depression and pain and suffering are elevated to the only important thing in the universe. That's the thing I need explaining to me. I'll leave it with you.
Well, I need some things explained to me too, but no one seems to want to do that on from your camp. I'd like you to explain exactly how you could rationalize in any way because the consequence of what you're saying is basically it doesn't matter whether there's 6 million Jews, 6 billion Jews, 6 trillion Jews in concentration camps. It just doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant whether things are feeling and suffering. And I mean, I just don't see how you can make any sense out of that. We can recognize the difference. And even if you say it's not a big difference, it's still a difference. Smiley face, frowny, dying face. They're different faces, and they're reflecting a different experience, and there's definitely a negative aspect to one and a positive aspect to the other. Negative, positive. It's the thing the universe runs on, is this idea of negative and positive. And we have negative and positive in our motivational structure. So anyway, we'll move on to Piro and see if that gets us to where we're going. Sorry, this wasn't as coherent as I wished it to be. So we're going to move up on Piro to like maybe halfway in here and just let him jammer a little just so you get the feel of his bullshit.
No, even if it's true, the fact that it's true is not why you believe it. For a truth to convince you, you have to know it. So you're having...
Whatever, that doesn't even mean anything. We know, okay, beyond reasonable doubt, there's no God. It's a completely an invention of human beings. There's absolutely not one bit of real evidence. There's just a bunch of hearsay testimony from whack jobs. And we know they were just whack jobs. There's just no evidence of a God. None. Can't find it as any physical evidence. You can't find it as any kind of legitimate evidence. And you can't even, through logical deduction, find any reason to believe in it. Okay, because the world is totally illogical, and everything that we know, everything our brain rationally puts together would have to be essentially upside down to make whatever God's up to make any sense. I mean, it would have to be some sort of bizarre, reverse psychology, insane plan he has. This plan cannot possibly succeed by any kind of rational stretch of imagination. It's only through irrational stretches of imagination that you can make this make sense. You're doing the same thing with will. All right, so to the mystic, to Piro, look, first the word free was bogus, and you've admitted it. It's a bogus word. You can't use it. It's nonsense, okay? It doesn't mean anything. Well, this word will is also kind of bogus, all right? You can call a desire, you can call it an addiction, you can call it an attraction, you can call it an affection. You have lots of different words for it. What we do inside of our brain, all right, challenge this, please. I mean, you don't acknowledge anybody else's arguments ever. You just walk right past them like they haven't been made. And there is models for how our psychology comes up with a will, a dominant player. That's been posed to you, and you're not dealing with that simple argument. That what we basically are is chains of conceptualization, okay? Chains of morality, code, that fall into categories, or affinities. We have our engineering chain, our electricity chain, what you understand about electricity, your understanding of modern electronics, your understanding of social law. These are all chains. Now, you could call them personalities. You could call them individuals, because some of these chains have a lot of nuance to them. The further down the chain you go, the more life experiences you find that are related to that subject matter. But those subjects are basically chains of logic, chains of experience and affirmations of certain behavior and ridicule of other behavior, both in yourself and as you witness it in other people. An understanding of consequences and understanding of how certain behaviors complete fail. You learn all this stuff through your life experience. So now what happens is these chains are in the game, okay, when your brain is turned on. And your brain will compose strategies, because that's what it does. It says, I'm hungry. The brain is designed, explicitly designed by evolution, through the process of evolution, to facilitate this idea of creating motivation and then behavior. Well, this part that does the behavior part basically engineers solutions to your problems, and that these suggested modes of action arise into your consciousness, because that's what your brain is supposed to be doing. It's coming up with plans. So one of these chains throws a plan up, throws it on the chalkboard, right, of your mind. And all the other chains evaluate it. They rub across it. They just go right across and say, blah, 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 blah. Do I have a problem with that suggested behavior? And if nobody vetoes it, if none of the other chains go across that plan of action and go, hey, wait a minute, there's a problem there, because I'm an engineer, I know that's not going to work, okay? It's going to leak again, and you're going to have twice as big a hole to dig your way out of. All right? So, yeah, if nothing vetoes it, it's going to become your will. All right? So your will, you have a whole bunch of proposing chains of thought. And some of them are just bizarrely silly, like, I'm going to walk up to that girl and say, I'd like to fuck you. Right? Then another chain says, you asshole, you're not going to get away with that. All right, you got to be a little more subtle. You got to do some kind of, like, you got to be a little more subtle, because it just isn't going to work. You're going to be looked at like you're the scum of the earth, and you're going to feel like dirt. All right, so don't bother with that. When you got enough, you feel like dirt already enough. You don't need more dirt inside your feelingness, so don't fucking do it. But, as you get older, you almost say, what do I got to lose? I mean, I'm already dirty. But let's say if you were going to go and, like, pinch your nipple. I mean, some chain is going to say that sometime in your brain. It's going to say, just pinch your nipple. It's no big deal. And the other chains of thought, of rational, coherent chains of experience are going to sit there, and one of them's going to veto. One of them's going to yell really loud and say, don't do it, Sneezy! Or whatever. You can think of your brain as like the 7 dwarfs. All right, you got 7 dwarfs, and they basically vote on everything. And that's basically how it works. And if one guy vetoes it, it basically ain't going to happen. There's going to be dissidence. As soon as the veto pops up, there's dissidence, and then the dissidence has to be worked out. The rest of them either shout down the guy who's vetoing and say, shut the fuck up, motherfucker, it's a good thing, you're being an asshole, go away. Or else they all say, yeah, well, you got a good argument, maybe you got to come up with a better plan, because that plan sucks. That's your will, Pyro. It's not complicated. And on a physical level, it's already been argued to you by more than just me, by millions or billions, thousands of people probably, that what's taking place is basically just not any more sophisticated or complicated than what takes place in a computer. There's memory space, there's registers of memories and associations and connections, there's this neural network that can be duplicated synthetically in computer programming. It really isn't outside our grasp to understand how this mechanism works and what arises out of it. And so I would argue to Nick is that the will is kind of like, it's a false notion first. So let's just call it what it is, which is an active program being acted on. Okay, and a suggestion acted on ends up being the will. So the will itself doesn't mean anything. The function of the brain is to create suggested behavior and to actually, eventually to act on it. And we're designed to be cautious when we're allowed to be, to think when we have time to think. These are all structures built into our psychology. So this idea of a feeling of will is completely an imagination. Because if you analyze it, I don't have any feeling of will anymore. I just have this idea, this understanding that I will behave. I'm going to do something. I don't always know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do 2 hours from now if a certain thing happens. I could predict, but depending on my mood, maybe I have to go to the bathroom and I'll behave entirely different than I would if I didn't have to go to the bathroom. Circumstances are going to dictate what my will be, and that's just the way it is. So anyway, and we have just conditioned themes of our personality. Over time, we acquire taste for things. We like certain environments. We say, hey, saunas kick ass. And the chicks, wow. And so I want to live in saunas. I want to spend more time in saunas. And that becomes our will. And Pyro's just making that into some sort of mystical experience because he realized he likes to do something. And so he had a thought in his head that said, let's figure out a way we can do that. And then he exercised the thought, and nothing vetoed it in his head. And he thinks that's miraculous. Well, it's not miraculous. So that's why will and free can be disposed of. Now, suffering, on the other hand, is just rock solid. So let's get to this butthole. I mean, this person. I mean, this fucker. I mean, this, whatever this guy was. All right, Black Crow 6667. All right, fuck you. Anyway, so he says, how is there morality in moving particles? Physics, which is what this is, has no inherent morality. Well, no one's arguing that the physics has morality. What's being argued is that there is value in the universe created by this manifestation of consciousness. And okay, well, this is my response to him. I basically say this. By themselves, hydrogen and oxygen are not watery. Properties are acquired through arrangement of moving particles. So I'm basically just arguing that a car is different than just, a pile of wheels over there and an engine over there and a steering wheel over there. No, a car is different. And we become different. When you arrange matter into one of these neural networky things, it becomes different. When the moving particles create sensation of positive and negative orientation in so arranged brains, value and morality is created. Okay, so I'm arguing that our brains create this thing. And they synthesize this thing called value by creating this thing called a negative sensation, a repulsion that is felt and then reacted to by the intelligent part of the brain. And it fell on it. It fell on this trick. Now, whether the trick goes all the way down to some first spark, some first little bit of lightning that's flashing or flickers inside our brain, and our brain just amplifies the flicker. So I could take a lightning bug, and if I amplify it, if I put layers of amplifying devices on top of it, I can make its flicker, I can make it burn a hole through your house, okay? And it's only a little flicker at the core because the amplification has created everything you're seeing. Our brain might be just amplifying something that's simple, something like just the attraction of a magnet to another magnet or to metal. It's just amplifying it in this bizarre manner that creates this illusion of a theater, of a projection and a receiver. Okay, this projection of a feeling, this thing that can feel the feeling, it can be hurt. And there's this huge amount of continuity between our thoughts and our feelings. Okay, thoughts conducive to maintaining our feeling comfort are rewarded, and thoughts that are threatening our comfort are punished. Okay, yeah, so, all right, so then he says, so he just ignores this comment pretty much. Value, after all, is just as subjective as morality. Well, it's just a stupid thing to say. Of course, the instruments that create are always subjective. They're things. As soon as you identify a thing as a thing, it's subjectively experiencing the universe. That doesn't discount what is happening to it. It doesn't change the fact that it's doing something. A car doesn't stop moving because the car is moving, personally. Idiot. Is because it's always value in reference to something. No, again, you just ignored what I said. I said it is created, creation. It's the first cause of the value. There's the first cause. When you create something that can go, ouch, you have now created value. So again, it's not reference to something magical or outside of some realm. No, the reference is its own creation. Where that something is the subjective process of the creature doing the interpreting. Again, it is not. We're not talking about whether you cry watching a cat be run over by a car. The point is the cat is experiencing the suffering, you idiot. So it's not about interpreting what you're seeing or what's happening to something. It's about acknowledging what's happening to it, which is that it's suffering. Without an ability to process the morality or value of the situation, are you then assuming it has no morality? Without the ability to process the morality or value of a situation, are you then assuming it has no morality? I don't even know what that means. Morality is a crappy word anyway. It'd be really nice if we just got rid of that. So, without the ability to process the value of a situation, are you then assuming it has no value? You must. Why don't, like I said, why? Because you are grounding it in a subjective human brain experience, which is why it is not objective and why so many brains have variable opinions. Well, that's not why they have variable opinions, because they have fucking lies and bullshit in their head that completely discount the reality. You among them. You have some dopey nihilist notion in your head that nothing feels besides you. It's just completely irrational. You know from your personal experience that negative feelings absolutely suck. If I drive a screw into your nuts, you're going to know for sure that's just not a good thing to have happen. It would be better, it would be preferable, unless it's for screws, not to go into nuts. Okay? Testicles. That's just a fact. It's preferable that screws do not impact testicles. Just a fact. It's a fact. You just can't deny it. There's no logic that you can twist or turn to say, no, it wouldn't be preferable. Of course it would be preferable not to sit there and cause that experience, because that experience clearly can't be a positive experience. It clearly can't be beneficial in some way. And by our own experience, we clearly know it absolutely sucks. And so when we see it in something else, we can just merely make that rational assessment that, well, I know that must really suck. If I see a guy getting a screw screwed into his testicles, I know he's not having a good time. So this just isn't complicated. And it's just bullshit to play this game like somehow you can discount what is just, there's no logical reason to deny what our experience tells us, that this experience is real enough. Okay? The illusion is happening in such a way, whether it's magnifying something tiny or not. The magnification is real. The syndrome is real that we're caught up in, this consciousness thing. And it's decidedly negative. And to pretend that the fact that it's made out of little particles somehow undoes the decidedly negative aspect of it, I think it's just, it's crazy. Like I said, you're given as strong an evidence as anything can be given. It's put right inside of your head. You actually can feel the horror. You can feel the cruddiness of it. You can experience that illusion. And yet you're going to walk around and say it doesn't matter. And you know it's not the same as a mirage or an optical illusion. You know it's not even the same as a dream state. I mean, going back to Pierrot's will thing, I mean, just look at our consciousness in the dream state. We can see how everything's just kind of dulled. Okay, the imagination engine is still running, but it's completely disconnected from, the boundaries of reality. Because it's conducive to you having new life experience, which is the whole point of you dreaming in the first place, biologically or evolutionarily, I would imagine, is that it's good practice. And there's no point in practicing what you already know how to do, so the brain throws something new at you. It invents something completely new at you to give you life practice. Give you 2 bears at one time, or bears with 3 heads. I mean, it invents stuff there. It's a little preposterous, but like I said, that's probably conducive to you being sharper, not duller, being more capable to survive. All right, but there was a point I want to make. All right, so I'm just going to come back to these 4 words, and I'm just going to have to deal with these 4 words. I mean, you have, in the universe, we have forces we can see, attraction and repulsion. It's all over the place. I mean, everything is playing in those kind of forces are all over the place. And in the human brain, it's turned into reward and punishment, because there are these 2 kind of brains. There's the projecting brain, the one that projects the illusion, and there's the receiver, the screen brain, that has the illusion thrown at it, the dart thrown at it. And this is a trick that biology fell upon that made it possible for it to create all of this behavior. And it all started with one little creature sometime in our past that went, ow, ow. And that's how it started. Just a little ow, and through evolution, 500 million years of it, that was turned into grief. It was turned into all kinds, everything you feel, every good feeling and every bad feeling you have is being created out of that ow. That little taste, that little bit of a projection reception scenario, a syndrome even. But the fact that it's an illusion is irrelevant. It's not the same as a benign illusion. It's not the same as an illusion. We have different kinds of illusions, and they don't mean anything because they don't have an impact on our welfare, on our comfort. And the idea of comfort is a new concept. It's separate, and it's not bullshit like a will. It's not bullshit like free. It's a real manifestation of brain function. And creating it in a computer, from the ground up, to make a computer sentient, you'd probably have to start with that first little ouch. You'd have to figure out the trick that gives the computer the illusion of a self-interest, the illusion of a soft spot, a sensitivity that can be harmed, a harmable spot. You have to create the idea of harm, hurt, personal interest inside of that software or that hardware first, before you could create a truly synthetic feeling organism. You can create a synthetic behaving machine, but to create a feeling is tricky. And we know it, that we can see it's different. We can understand that it's different. All right? That this is a weird mechanism. It's a physical one, but it's weird. It's not just your everyday mirage. It's a special mirage, and it does in fact create value in the universe, because harm, negativity, is the value creator. I would argue in the universe it is the quanta seeking rest, chasing its home, chasing the hole it got pushed out of, and it does it at the speed of light forever and ever until it finds that hole. I could argue that that's a metaphor, but I mean it's a metaphor that could be physically true, practically true. And that the same kind of disruption has taken place inside our brain, and that it creates this problem, and the resolution is solving the problem. And so you solve it in some physical way based on your structure, but the real problem is the fact that you don't feel good. That's the real problem. And you find ways to satisfy it in different ways. And those things are all equally meaningless. The only thing that does mean something, though, is the state itself that you're in, which is a state of aversion. You're in a hostile, you're in a not at peace. You're comparable to the homeless quanta. Your consciousness is seeking peace. Good enough. But again, I mean, there's just no reason to corrupt the testimony of your personal experience. I mean, there's just no way I can turn my suffering into nothing. To say it's nothing is just ludicrous. It's just that. It just is. It's ludicrous. Like I said, if somebody's driving a screw into one of my testicles, what I'm going to be feeling is not nothing. I have to work on it some more, but I mean, it's I guess it's almost like proving the non-existence of God. I mean, there's this point where you just say, how do you prove the wetness of the water? How do you prove the badness of the suffering? I mean, these things are just, they might be beyond the realm of proof, because I would truly need an authority. I would truly need somebody who knew the entire mechanism of the system and said, yeah, that's it right there. All this other shit is just matter, banging into matter. But when you arrange it like that, and it has that illusion of a self, then it's fucked, because you can hurt it. I mean, I really don't think that if there was a brain that could exist outside the universe and evaluate the system, that it wouldn't be able to figure that out. That the idea of hurt or harm or pain and suffering just really, it was something. It wasn't nothing. All right, that's enough. I give up. For now. Till the next time. Like maybe 20 minutes from now. But whatever. But yeah, our brain just evolved into this, and reward and punishments, the game that's being played with us, attraction and repulsion, these are the crude forces behind the whole thing, and it's just using this idea of suffering, of pain and pleasure, to create reward and punishment, to create attraction and repulsion, to motivate us to move. And because of our complexity, we're not going to move just from the matter itself. The movement has to be provoked by some instrument. And this is the instrument biology fell upon to do this complex behavior, was to make something it could poke. And it's basically just your brain, all this complex crap, in the end, is just basically pushing a button that says, feel good, feel bad. Feel unbad, feel worse, maybe are the real buttons. But yeah, that's the game it's playing. And it's just driving you with those two pedals. Now it's good enough.